Hello, and welcome to another lesson in NWEA MAP Growth Report Basics for Teachers. This is Jean Potter, and I'm going to be your guide today to look at the student profile. We've already looked a little bit at the home page, but just as a reminder, at the top of the page are tabs for each of the different assessments that the students took. We're going to be looking specifically at the comparisons module, so that's this module down on the left-hand side. I'm going to move it up just a little bit so you can see a little better. In the comparisons module, I can find information out about how Crystal did, so Crystal Brazillo, how Crystal did compared to other students in her grade or that are similar to her. She was in math only was growing at the 4th percentile, and her achievement was also below the mean at the 34th percentile. And this is shown over here also in the quadrant chart, which refers back to what we saw with the ASG quadrant chart that we looked at in another lesson. At the bottom of this module, it also talks about how Crystal is projected to perform on different high-stakes testing, in this case HCT and SAT, and if you have a state test, it would also be here. If I want to know more about this, though, I can click on these two small arrows, give it a moment, and I get a little bit more detailed information. Again, it shows me Crystal's norm range for both growth and for achievement. It also tells me in text that she's at the 4th percentile and the 34th percentile, and it shows me where she would be positioned in the quadrant chart as an individual student, much like we saw the entire class in the ASG. There's information here from the conditional growth index, and talks about Crystal's performance there, and she's a negative 1.7, so she's not growing as fast as many of her peers, so those are good things to know. There's a box right here. You can't see it when I click on it, but if I click on it, I could choose to look at a different comparison between two different assessments. So right now we're at fall to spring. I could also choose winter to spring and spring to spring, although you can't see those. Moving over just a little further, here is an expansion on how she would be expected to perform on high-stakes testing in the spring, or coming up high-stakes testing. And a very neat feature is this mapping the road to college. There's a link here, but we can begin to talk to Crystal about what kind of scores might be expected to be needed to go to a particular college. This is also available on the NWEA homepage. If you'll look at it, it is under the research and research galleries, I believe, on the homepage. If I click to a different one, we've been looking at math. If I click to reading, take just a moment for it to pull up. If I click to reading, she's slightly above average in reading, both growth and achievement, and that's reflected in the conditional growth index. Again, here are the projections out for how she would do on high-stakes testing, the College Explorer, and readability measures, since this was a reading test. If I'm finished looking at this material, or if I need to move, when I'm ready to move on in my conversation with Crystal and or her parents, I can just click on the X, and that would take me out and back to the home page. If I'm ready to talk to another student, I can either use the pull-down menu to choose the student's name, or I can use the arrows to go back and forth. Again, that's the student profile.